Headliner Nation, we are back with episode 2 of going inside the mind of NFL quarterback Kurt Benkert. Really excited for this one. If you missed the first episode a couple of days ago, he sat down and we talked a little bit about the Green Bay Packers, San Francisco 49ers, and your next breakout quarterback in the NFL. In this episode, we are going to dive into the rookie quarterbacks, and he's going to give you some thoughts and opinions on those guys. But I don't want to hold us up any longer. Let's dive right into it. Yo, Headliner Nation, Kurt's got so much information that he's going to be sharing with us today. We got to hop right into it. And Kurt, NFL draft, month or so in the rearview mirror now. Rookies have kind of gotten into camps and been moving along that process. Let me hear from you. A couple of questions. Number one, what rookie quarterback drafted this year do you think has the highest ceiling, and who has the safest floor?
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. I think the highest ceiling, probably Anthony Richardson. I think most people would agree. I think the safest floor, probably CJ Stroud. I think CJ is probably the most ready to go right now of all the guys. He's got the size, smooth release, like he's a gamer. But then you look at Anthony Richardson, and man, he's a freak. Just watch it. When I was at the combine this year as a vet, just watching him like walk around, sit around, like whatever, wherever he was, like dude takes up space in a room and you can feel his presence. I'm excited to see how he transitions, and hopefully he can put it all together to be a really good player.
Yeah, I did. Anthony Richardson is a big guy for us on this channel, because when we did like film reviews back towards the end of the year, January type time frame, I did one on him and I was like, this guy is going to end up being a first round pick. And a lot of people are like, I don't think there's any way. And then he explodes at the combine. I'm like, this guy's a top 5 pick. And then people are like, that might be a little bit too high. And then he goes at number 5. So I'm excited to see what he does. When you watch Anthony Richardson, I know a lot of people are worried about like the middle of the field passing game, that intermediate area, but people said the same thing about Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, and they have seemed to be just fine. Is this a guy that you think, hey, comes in and picks that up right away, or is this a skill that needs to be built over time, and maybe it's 2 or 3 years before he starts to excel in that area?
I think it'll be pretty immediate. Probably a couple months, few games before he kind of gets it settled in. I think the biggest piece is like in college, the hashes are different than the NFL. So it really emphasizes throwing the ball opposite side of the field, because you can exploit space if you have a speedier team than the team you're playing against. So that's kind of like the whole gist of how the college game is played, where in the NFL, the ball only moves like, 18 feet, I think, is 18 feet, 6 inches or so is the kind of the distance between hash and hash. So it's a lot smaller. And it kind of enforces the need to throw the ball across the middle of the field. And in my opinion, once you get used to it, it's actually way easier to throw the ball in the middle of the field than it is across the field outside the hashes. I think the college game allows you to see what's capable of a quarterback, how far can he throw, how much velocity does he have on intermediate outbreakers. But the gimme routes in the NFL, like if you look at the Shanahan system, it's all across the middle of the field. And I think that once you get comfortable throwing where there's defenders that you have to throw over, it's just kind of like a light switch that goes off. And I think it'll go off pretty quick for him.
Awesome. Love to hear that. I'm excited for it. Now, let's move on to a guy that got a lot of hype kind of leading into the draft, and then draft night gets here, and it was like, holy cow, what is going on with Will Levis? A lot of people were very excited for him, a strong armed quarterback. I had my concerns kind of about how he uses his feet, and like his big arm doesn't really play in games, but he ends up falling into the second round, which I did not foresee happening. Was there anything that kind of caught your eye watching Will Levis and what he does, where you said, this is why he fell as far as he did?
I think just when you watch him throw, I wouldn't say that he's like a natural thrower. He has a strong arm and he can spin it. But I think part of the reason why he probably fell is that he is kind of a stiffer type quarterback, stiffer athlete. And if you look at the guys that have had the most success in the league, they're not built like him. Very few are. And to have like longevity and like be able to do all of it, I think you need to have a little bit of fluidness in your body and your arm. And if you look at guys like Josh Allen is a huge guy, but he also like isn't very rigid as a player. Like he can move kind of laterally. He's not so stiff. And I think a guy like Will, like he'll probably go through his first year. He's going to play that role that he's in right now. But I think over training in the next offseason, he'll realize what his training needs to look like a little differently, to not be so muscle bound, to be able to just, pick it up, spin it sidearm, like do whatever you need to do to change the arm angle, which it's hard to do when you're built like that. A lot of us in the league have come out of college and we're training for the combine and we want to look like freaks as much as we can, be as built as possible. Then you get into a room with a quarterback that's been doing it for 10 years and you're like, whoa, this dude doesn't look like that. He doesn't train like that. He actually trains more like a golfer, or like, you know what I mean? It's a different type of training to get ready to play and to be a consistent passer. That was my first takeaway. I was like, dude, this dude is ripped. He's huge, like muscle bound. He can throw it really far, but it's hard to hit those intermediate passes when you're stiff. And I think he'll probably be able to work through some of that and what it looks like.
All right, quick rookie bonus question for you. Did the Lions get a steal in Hendon Hooker in the 3rd round?
Oh, I think so, dude. He's a baller, obviously. He showed that he can play. If you look at all the years in like the last 5 to 10 years of the NFL draft, how many quarterbacks were like hits on like their draft positioning? Like a lot of teams have really made hay in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round at QB, and to get a guy with his talent in the 3rd round, I think is it's a no-brainer. It's well worth the pick. And you kind of can like tamper expectations. He doesn't have to play right away. They're building a team for the long run. They're gritty. Like I think that kind of guy could go in and shake some stuff up over the next 2 to 3 years.
Awesome. As a Lions fan, I love to hear that. And there's been some other Lions fans that I know that are like, I think this guy is the future. And I think that was a really good pick. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. But I'm going to ask you a couple of quick, fun questions real fast. Didn't send these to you beforehand. We like to do this with all of our guests and kind of throw some things out there with you. So let me ask you a couple fun ones real quick. Number one, what is your favorite pregame meal?
Oh, steak, green beans, and mashed potatoes. I think it just sits well. That's typically what my go-to is, especially when I was in Green Bay for preseason. That was everything. And it typically is better on home games than it is for away games, because at home games they're cooked in like the actual stadium kind of meal room, versus away games you're kind of relying on the hotel a little bit. But yeah, that'll sit with you and fuel you for the long run.
I feel like that's a safe pick, so you don't have any issues like Lamar Jackson during the middle of the game. Dude. So I feel like that's a safe pick. No doubt. In the NFL right now, if you had to pick one current wide receiver to be your wide receiver one, who would it be and why?
Oh God, how are we talking long run? Like over the next few years?
Let's say next 2 to 3 years.
Oh man, dude, this might be a sleeper pick, but I would say Jamar Chase.
Okay.
Because the way that I look at it is like, he's the only guy in the league that's consistently like house calling slants. Like of all the guys in the league, like that are making crazy catches, like deep ball fades and all this, like he's doing that stuff. Maybe not as consistently as others, but he's taking slants to the house. And that is like I don't know. That's a skill that like not many people have. Julio Jones used to do that in his first few years in the league, and like he was the top dog for a long time. But like Jamar Chase has this like baller in him that just, he can get vertical in a hurry, split people and take what should be a 10-yard gain and make it a touchdown, 60 plus. And that's like I think that's a skill that we don't really talk about. It's like, what can you do with underneath routes and how deep can you take them?
Perfect. So if you are talking to a young kid that says, I want to be a quarterback, I want to play at the high school, college, potentially professional level, what is the one quarterback that you would say, hey, go watch this guy's tape? This is what you want your game to look like if you want to get better at the quarterback position. So I think that's the way that I look at it, and might be a little bit of a curveball, is I tell guys to find the top 3 quarterbacks that resemble their like physique or play style or body type, and try to blend your game to be a match of those 3. So when I was a kid growing up, like I was not going to be Tom Brady. I was not going to be Peyton Manning. That wasn't my play style, but people would have told me like, oh, you need to do everything they do. But I didn't play like that. I wasn't built like them. It was different. So what I did was I took Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and believe it or not, Jay Cutler,
And I blended and watched all three of their play styles, how they did things, what was good, what was bad and different. But they were kind of like gunslingers that were mobile, but they weren't like running to run. They were running to throw. They were scrambling to throw. And so that's how I blended my game from the time I was like 13 on up. And yeah, it worked out.
You know what? I absolutely love that answer because I coach my son's baseball team. I've been coaching him for several years now, and I kind of do the same thing when kids talk about like watching film. I always try to help them find guys that kind of resemble kind of the way they hit or the way they play the field and things like that. So I absolutely love that answer. That is great for young kids that might be listening right now to say, hey, make sure that you look at somebody that's similar to you. So that's a good one. All right, last one real quick. What is the one defense that you do not want to see across from you, or maybe one of the toughest defenses to read in the NFL right now?
Nickel double A, 100%. Just because in theory, unless you're in the right formation on offense, there should always be a free hitter. The way that these defenses play it, they're pretty good at it. They know how to blitz and peel away from the slide. Yeah, the nickel double A, if the teams are running it right, is really hard to stop because you shouldn't really have an answer. And offenses are built around having answers for protection. But yeah, if you get caught and you don't have the right protection, then you're screwed. It helps if you have a tight end in, because then you can kind of make the edge of the line wider, give yourself some time to get the ball off. But some of the biggest plays happen against it too. So it's risk reward. But for me, most of it's come in preseason when we're not really prepared and we don't game plan for it. And it can be really frustrating because it's not like you're prepping that as like a blitz package that you have answers for.
Is there a defense, like a team right now in the NFL, that you would see that a lot from?
Yeah. When I was playing in preseason a couple of years ago with the Jets, with Saleh, they played it a lot. The Falcons used to play it a lot. Trying to think of who else used to play it. A lot of the teams that like have quicker linebackers like to play it. Because the backers have to be able to engage and pull back out. So like everybody has it in their package, but the teams that are really good at it, I believe maybe it was the Saints like 4 or 5 years ago used to play it a lot when they had I don't forget who their middle linebacker was, but like Saints, the Bucks, like a lot of the teams that have athletic linebackers can get into that, peel back out, and they can play it pretty aggressively. Yeah, it's a tough one to play against.
Yo, Headliner Nation, in the comments below, make sure that you thank Kurt for taking the time to come on this show with us and let him know that we would love to have him on in the future. And do not forget, the link to his book is in the description down below. If you use that link to order, you're going to get all 3 of his books for only $30. And I highly recommend that you do this. These books are great, and they're going to give you a better fundamental knowledge of the game of football. Peace out, Headliner Nation. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.